Welcome to Art Bazaar, a podcast that chats with artists of all types to explore the depths of creativity. Brought to you by the Alternative Gallery. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday with bonus episodes dropping randomly. If you like what you're hearing, you can support this podcast by going to thealternativegallery.com and clicking on the podcast tab. I'm your host, Brandon Wonder, creative director of the Alternative Gallery, a nonprofit arts organization in Allentown, PA, run through the efforts of dedicated volunteers. On this episode of Art Bazaar, we'll be chatting with Stephy Orellana, an Allentown-based multimedia artist. Stephy works as a museum educator at the Allentown Art Museum, teaching art classes to families. Stephy has also spent time at the Alternative Gallery as a resident artist and vended with us at a variety of events. You can view her work on Instagram at Stephy.xox. Today we'll talk about what her experiences in the arts have been like and what's on her mind. Welcome to Art Bazaar, Steph. How you doing?
Hello.
How you feeling?
Lovely. It's a Monday.
It's Monday. You ready to get creative today?
Absolutely, every day.
I know that you do a lot of different types of artwork, and you generally refer to yourself as a multimedia artist. Can you kind of just describe briefly what your art is and what mediums you might work in?
I like to consider myself a multimedia artist because I don't like putting myself in a box. And I think art should be explorative. And I believe that takes off the pressure of me putting myself in just one dimension and just having that. And I like to just be loose with it. Art should be playful. I think that's why I gravitate towards teaching children as well. They inspire me, and I like that we could be creative with one another. So I like to play with different textures. I like to grab what people would consider trash and making it beautiful. I've painted on mirrors, wooden tables, just even plywood, tree trunks.
A lot of found objects.
Absolutely. And then just playing around with different material as well. So I gravitate now mostly towards broken CDs, as weird as that is. That mixed with some gold leaf is also like a thing that I like to play around with. I've been dabbling with spackling art as well. So again, I don't like to put myself in a box, nor do I think anyone else should put themselves in a box. I think you should stay playful with it. So yeah.
When you do an art event, what do you typically bring out to show?
I think I'd like to bring a little bit of everything just because I want people to see my variety, that I'm not just a two-dimensional type of artist. So yes, I have sketches. Yes, I have a sketchbook. So I showcase that. I show just my regular like paintings, oils, acrylics. But I also like to bring my mixed media art. That somehow always starts conversation. I feel like those are normally the ones that are people like, what did you use here? Why did you decide to create with this? So it also takes off that pressure of like trying to sell my art. I just allow my art to tell its own story. And then that just creates curiosity. So yeah.
I know some artists don't like when people ask, what's the meaning of this work, or what were you thinking? Is that something you like or dislike?
I think I like it just because I started off as a writer. So I feel like everyone's an artist. We just have different art forms. So now I'm very much a painter. And I like the story aspect of it because I think your art is a story of you. It is telling of what you're going through or what you're trying to translate into the world, what might be going on in your own personal world, you know? So I think the story aspect of it is actually very important. And sometimes maybe I don't have a story. Maybe that's just a feeling, but that's a story in itself, you know? That could also be relatable or that could resonate. So yeah, I think it could be annoying, I guess, because you constantly have to repeat the same story.
Sure.
But it is also very powerful. And I think that that's part of art.
I think there's a difference between someone being genuinely interested in how you did something as compared to someone not knowing what to say to an artist. And that's just one of the few things that always is thrown out there.
Absolutely.
Because we've had this discussion in the past, me and some of the AG crew, about people who aren't familiar with art. And they often come up to an artist, well, what's the meaning behind this? Or what were you thinking? Or why did you make it? And I think for non-artists, they might not realize that sometimes there aren't answers to those questions.
Yeah.
Some of us don't know why we made this piece, or we don't remember what we felt or why we made it to begin with.
Yeah.
Do you have any pieces like that?
Oh, absolutely. There have been emotional pieces that I have looked at a canvas. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And I have cried. I have gotten angry, yelled. I have had a roller coaster of emotions. And then I'm just like, I have no idea what that is. But that's clearly what I felt. And even looking at it now that I teach, I know I learned, they say sometimes we gravitate towards certain colors during certain times that we're feeling certain emotions. And I start to look at like a series of my works through years. And like 2019, I had a very dark palette. Very dark palette. Now that I look back at my life, that was a really fucking rough year for me. So it makes sense to why it was so dark.
But it was subconscious at the time, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Interesting.
It was very subconscious at the time.
And now you're using very bright, shiny.
Oh my God, it's super bright, shiny, and it translates. So now later on, I can look back at this work and I'm just like, wow, it's a translation of where I was in my life at that time.
So I take it that means you're going through a good period right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like it's a growth period, which is funny because I feel like that's why I'm using different types of materials. I feel like growth has different aspects to it and dimensions. So me playing around with different objects, you will, and different colors and just brightness of it all coming together is actually interesting. But yeah, I do agree.
It's a good period for you then. Do you find yourself, like if you get too familiar with one medium, is that something you kind of stray away from if you get too familiar, or do you like to explore it as far as you can take it?
I think I like to explore it as far as I could take it, just because I think that's the purpose of it. It's supposed to challenge and inspire you at the same time. So how much better can you get if you don't actually take that up and see like, what else can I do with this? How else can I make up with this? And yeah, like I think that makes it playful for you. And it's also just explorative for yourself. I feel like in those moments where I'm frustrated and I'm like almost angry at my art because when you're an artist, you see it one way in your head. And then it actually comes about and comes to life in a completely different way most times. So I think going through that journey, going through that process is the point. Like that's part of the art making.
Absolutely. What was your early life like? Were you an artist when you were a child? Where did you first get your interest in art?
I believe I was always an artist. I just didn't think I was an artist. My confidence in being an art literally happened to me very late in adulthood. And I think I've always been surrounded by art. My family have been artists. I have an uncle from Honduras, where my family is from, who carves things out of wood and makes beautiful landscapes of what we call the campo, which is like just greens and like the fields and things like that, trees. And I remember him making me a really cool jewelry box when I went back to Honduras. I think I was 12. And I brought it home with me and I was obsessed because while I was there, we would eat fruit from my grandpa's yard and we would just watch him like create and just do this. And I'm just like, wow, he naturally just carves things from wood and he finds this therapeutic and makes a living out of it.
Do you still have that jewelry box?
I still have that jewelry box.
Hell yeah.
So freaking cool.
Oh, you got to send me a photo.
Absolutely. So yeah, my uncle carved. He's like a sculptor. I have another uncle who's a musician. He plays music. I've always had cousins who also kind of just like really are good at sketching. One of them actually graduated as an art teacher. Does not much with her degree, but she is an art teacher. I have another one who's an architect. So I've always somehow had it surrounding me. So as a kid, I was always drawing, sketching, writing. Like I said, I did poetry when I was younger. I was a writer. So it's always been within my family. I just think for most artists, I feel like some of them just know I'm an artist and they take that on very early. And I believe other ones just take a very long time to actually believe they're an artist and be confident in it, because society tells us you're not going to make a living being an artist. Society tells us like, get a real job, I was always thinking, how could I consider myself an artist when no one really believes that I could truly be successful in it. I think that's, again, another reason why I work with children and I try to encourage, because I believe everyone is an artist.
It's funny because I think I experienced both of those things that you said about some realize early and some don't realize till late.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I was about 5 years old that I wanted to make movies.
Love that.
I knew that. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what path I was supposed to be on, but I knew I loved movies so much. That's how I wanted to spend my life. But it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I actually looked at what I did as being an artist.
Mm-hmm. And you said you were 5?
I was like 5 years old. It all started with Ghostbusters. I was
love
obsessed with
that.
Ghostbusters.
But that's like the pure, I feel like when you think about that 5, like the age of like the preschoolers, I like to, as far as education, that's when they're like the most vulnerable and most innocent. So that means the purest part of you knew you were an artist and that was your medium. That's beautiful. I think that's amazing.
I feel artists are very lucky because we discovered what we love.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't find that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew at 5 years old what I wanted to do with my life. It's been a hell of a battle
It's
to
right.
achieve that. But at least I knew that at 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I always kind of knew that artists wouldn't make money. But again, because I considered filmmaking a separate thing from art, I thought, I can make movies and be rich. Not like, oh, I'm going to be in my 20s and 30s making documentaries and be completely poor, which is what ended up happening.
Yeah. But it's an art, like even that, like you probably didn't even realize it was an art form.
No.
And now you're just like, wow, this is the art realm. This is a huge part of the art realm.
I think where I started to realize that movies were art is, again, because I was so obsessed with these movies, I would get everything about them, the books, the making of, and then you would see the guys that would make like the background scenery and the special effects. And I'm like, those guys are artists. So I did understand to a degree that there was an artistic nature to filmmaking, but I didn't think my approach to it was that, just because of how America considers artists.
Yeah.
And usually artists are sculptors, painters, that kind of thing. There's writers, dancers. They're not often lumped in with being artists. Now I understand that to be quite different. You do anything creative, you're an artist.
Absolutely. And again, this is why I'm like anti-boxes. And as annoying and obnoxious that probably will be throughout this entire episode, is I'm anti-boxes because I think that's very misleading, for one. And two, like you're not encouraging anyone if you're trying to put them in a box. We're multifaceted people. We're not supposed to be in boxes. Like you might be doing a documentary. That's what you're great at right now. But that's an art form. Capturing real life and creating it to be a visual for other people to see and it to be a story. That's an art form.
And sometimes real life can be way more fascinating than anything that comes out of our minds.
Absolutely.
That's stranger than fiction saying.
Oh my God.
It's so true.
Well, not only that, it's so much more impactful in a sense to me, at least for me personally, that I could say, in my opinion, because it's so real.
It's real,
so
yeah.
vivid.
Yeah.
How could you not?
Yeah, there's not... Every now and then you realize actors, as amazing as they are, they're faking it.
Mm-hmm.
And not that there's anything wrong with that, but sometimes you get pulled out of the moment because you're reminded that this is not real. In documentary, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, these are real people.
This is real.
This is something that happened, and someone was fortunate enough just to have a camera and captured it.
Absolutely.
So what kind of stuff started putting you on the path to actually becoming an artist, working in the arts, and trying to kind of make your living as an artist?
I think it just finally taking the bravery and just saying, I don't want to work at a hospital anymore. I'm miserable. I'm an artist. I actually went back to school while I was at the local hospital here, and I was there for 10 years. And
Wow.
yeah, I was there for 10 years, eventually went into specialty, which was women and children. So I knew that I enjoyed working with that demographic of people. But then I went back to school. I was doing my journals, getting them out the way. And I took drawing for my electives, like painting, and I went back to that. And I was like, oh, I did that in high school. I'm gonna just, kind of dabble in that to get enough credits in my semester. And then I was just like, what am I doing? This is what makes me happy. Why am I going back to school and telling myself that I want to do sonography at that point or do some sort of radiology realm so I could continue in the hospital, because that was a stable choice. That was the right choice, on quotations. And then I just said, I was like, do I want to be unhappy for the rest of my life doing this? Or do I want to be happy doing what I'm doing and feeling like I'm fulfilling my purpose and just, doing my part in the world. I ended up just kind of volunteering with other artists, putting myself out there, painting at certain events. I came here to the gallery, actually ended up vending at the events here. So again, just surrounding myself with other artists, immersing myself in the artist community here. And I think if you're an artist or someone who's thinking about at least pursuing it, that is the first and biggest step, is just immersing yourself in your artistic community. That doesn't just involve the museum, the galleries. That involves literally being surrounded by other artists, being friends with other people, collaborating with other artists. You're going to learn from each other. You're going to inspire each other. You're going to enjoy your purpose together. And that makes the ride a little more smoother, I think, than just doing it alone. So again, I just would help volunteer and do those things. And I eventually got my teaching job at the museum, which I still am there and absolutely love. I never in a million years would have thought I would have been an art teacher, but here I am being an art teacher and also being an artist.
And I'm sure you're an amazing teacher, and those kids are very responsive to what you do.
I do get really good feedback from my families, and I think that's why I'm still at the museum, to be honest. Yes.
Interesting. I want to go back to what you said there about artists and community. And I think for a lot of Allentown artists, the last year or two, we've kind of realized how important it is to have this community. How much things
Absolutely.
have just blossomed to life here by doing various vending events, the Third Thursday Art Market last year, the Artist Takeover events this year. Now, you've been involved with both those things, the Third Thursday Art Market. What was your experience like doing that?
I think I got more out of it just being surrounded by other artists. Again, I feel like I'm a full believer in just artistic community. Allentown is not as big as Philadelphia or New York. And I feel like a lot of artists fixate on that. And at least from my experience, that they're just like, well, it's hard because, we're not a huge metropolitan city like that. But we are pretty great if you take a look around and you surround yourself with your community. I met artists that I normally don't work with or have met before or have even come across in the museum, which again, I feel like it's important to know artists who are more in the fine art realm. But I also find it important to be surrounded by raw artists, self-taught artists, artists who truly live this artist life. And I say that they create in their homes. They might not have a studio, but they create in their homes every single day. Those artists inspire me in a whole nother level because they're not making time for art. They just make art. That's it. That's part of their life. They completely immerse.
They need it.
Yeah, they completely immerse themselves in it because that's what they are. They are the art. So again, I think just surrounding yourself with other artists, different type of artists, is very, very healthy, and it will just help you grow.
Yeah, the fact that we're so close to Philadelphia and New York, I think actually has hurt Allentown in a lot of ways. The fact that we're even in comparison to those areas tells me that.
Mm-hmm.
When people say, oh, we don't have as many opportunities here because we're not as big, well, I can point to a lot of cities which are much smaller than Allentown that are killing it in the arts. Look at Lancaster.
Absolutely.
Lancaster is a fraction of the size of Allentown. They don't take their small size as an excuse to not do things right. I think Allentown, we keep giving this area a pass because we're not a major city. We don't have to be a major city to have genuine support of the arts. And I think that's what a lot of us artists are running into right now, is a lack of opportunity and a lack of support for the arts here in this area. Is that something you see happening as well?
Yes, I agree. I think you said there's other cities or towns that are smaller and still make efforts to create opportunities for artists. They make it
a priority.
Exactly.
We don't.
So I think that's the difference. And I think just even having the right people in those positions to create opportunities for artists. But again, it takes us having those conversations. It takes us building those efforts to actually be in those spaces.
Yeah, I believe that change is bottom up.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's why I mentioned things like this, because artists getting on board here in Allentown saying, hey, we would like to do these things, but there's not enough support for it. I think that is what ultimately is what's going to gain us the support. I really feel it's wishful thinking to think that the mayor or the right arts commission is going to come in. We have to force their hand, unfortunately. And it really is going to take us saying like, hey, look at all these amazing people. Look what they do. They keep moving away. If you want to be serious about the arts, support what you have here. And that's a big part of this podcast, is to show, look at all these amazing people that are here in Allentown. And you act like we have to go out of the area for artists because there's no one here.
We have so many great artists. And
it's not just visual artists. We have dancers, musicians,
all sorts of arts. And I think that's what we're kind of like what do they say? What they're sleeping on.
Oh yes,
because they don't realize how big this artist community. I had an artist that I met, I believe, at your artist takeover 3 months ago, and he was showing in a gallery, I believe, in Easton. That was my first time actually meeting him in person, and we were just chatting it up, just getting to know each other. And I absolutely love that with other artists, because artists get other artists. So it's just such an organic conversation.
Even when they don't, they do.
Exactly. It's just a natural, organic type
I don't get this motherfucker. Oh, but he's an artist. That makes sense. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we were just getting lost in conversation. And then we were upstairs looking at the artwork at the America's Hotel, and we looked down and just seen a huge group of people down by the bar. And just that visual, I cannot forget it in my mind.
All artists too.
All artists. Absolutely. Exactly. You knew exactly what I was saying. I just looked down and I'm like, this is all artists in the Lehigh Valley. How beautiful is this? How could we make this more of a regular thing? And I'm thankful for you who provides these spaces, creates these events for us to even partake in.
I just want to say this quick, though. The reason I do that is because I take the time to talk to artists and try to figure out what they need. I'm not going to act like I know, but I'm going to try things that I think will help. And it's because of having conversations that led me to doing these events, because so many people were basically telling me we need a thing where artists can meet up outside of events. And that's how these events were born.
Yeah. And they're beautiful. Having you to be that person to like put the pieces together is amazing, because we need people in our community, again, who do that. And that moment just was very refreshing. And I remember Dawn just saying to me, I have never been to an event like this. Like Easton has their art and like scene, you know, their galleries, but I've never been in a room with this many artists. And I was just like, wow, that's beautiful to hear.
That's
like
powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful.
No matter where you are.
Exactly. So we do need to you created that space to be around other artists, to be inspired by each other, to see how we could collaborate with one another, to see, hey, are you submitting for this art gallery? You should do it as well, blah, blah, blah. You know, it just creates that connection and community. And I think that's the power that artists have.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we don't want to just limit those just to Allentown. We were doing them here, trying to kind of make an art bar and work with the America's Hotel because they're amazing, and they opened up right before the pandemic, and you know how all that went. So we were trying to help them along. We want to do one in Easton. We want to do one in Bethlehem. But we're not just sticking to the Valley. We're planning on taking these artist takeovers around the country.
That would be brilliant.
Philly,
that would be
New
absolutely
York,
brilliant.
Miami. I mean, let's go to LA with one. Let's go to Denver, Colorado. Even places that have thriving art communities, these will, in fact, might even be better there, because maybe these artists are all doing so many things, are too busy to actually hang out.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea is there's no structure, there's no talks, there's nothing like that. It's a bunch of artists come and hang out, and it's amazing what comes out of that. It's like the most productive thing we've done as an arts organization is just asking artists to hang out and talk to one another.
Absolutely.
All the effort we put into ArtsFest, it's like, shit, maybe we should just had artist meetups 10 years ago when we first started, and everything would have been different.
I mean, they both serve a wonderful purpose in community.
Yes,
and
right.
I think that we should never take away from that, because you have worked your butt off for that.
Yes.
I have
me along with a lot of others.
Yeah, I have volunteered to help you, and I have seen that it is a great event that so many people in the community talk about. And I'm just like, if you only knew the few people that actually do like what they do to create this event.
Yeah, we are small but mighty. I mean, the main core of ArtsFest is like 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
And when you hear that Mayfair used to have 500 volunteers and we had maybe 50.
Yeah,
and
it's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we're trying like hell to bring back ArtsFest. We tried this year. It's just too expensive. The problem is we don't have corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
Like we tried going for all the downtown sponsors, including City Center, but they didn't see the benefit that it would have in the downtown. They only want things that are absolutely on Hamilton Street and not off that. It's like we're trying to focus on bringing people to the hotels and the Uber drivers driving people back and forth and the parking garages that are going to...
It would still be,
and all the restaurants. We want this to be an experience. We want Allentown to have this amazing event that people travel from around the world to go to. Now, some people think that's not possible, but I truly believe that ArtsFest can become the East Coast South by Southwest. It could be that major of a festival if we allow it to be. So
I believe
we just need more corporate support.
Yeah.
That, or we have to do crowdfunding. I mean, we're meeting in November again to try for ArtsFest once again for next year, which we're really hoping we could do in 2024 because that marks the 10-year anniversary of ArtsFest. So to miss that would be kind of heartbreaking.
It would be. Oh my gosh, I remember because Joel, my current partner, he's a graffiti writer. And I remember he told me the one year he had a friend, I think that came from New York. And like another friend, I forget where they lived, if it was Arizona or something. And they came here just to like... for ArtsFest to do a panel, and like they both wanted to. I
know, and that's how much these guys love it, because we would love to be able to not only give those guys paint, but pay them to come paint. We can't do any of that. So these artists, they're traveling on their own dime. They're bringing their own paint. They're staying in a hotel, wherever they're staying, Airbnb, just to come be a part of this festival. So when we get that kind of response, and we know that people want this, of course, we have to pursue it, but I mean, it's going to be between $80,000 and $100,000 to host ArtsFest next year, and that's with every single person working for free.
I believe it.
So without major corporate sponsors, like we're trying to get Martin Guitar back, but their whole corporate structure now is they don't really want to sponsor events. They'll give you a guitar to raffle off. But it's like, well, I need a $10,000 check to pay for a stage, not maybe a few $100,000 or $1,000 after ArtsFest is over to pay whatever inevitable bill we have. Because don't get me wrong, we can do an ArtsFest, but we may put ourselves in extreme debt once again to do so. And we're trying to do a lot of stuff. And having that debt weighing you down, it keeps you from being able to focus on the projects you should be doing.
Well, not only that, I think the gallery is one entity, and of course it has its other things that it has going on year round. I think ArtsFest should definitely have some sort of funding and sponsorship from the community and the city of Allentown, or the Lehigh Valley in general, because it services the Lehigh Valley.
Well, the first 2 years, really, the city was against it because we had graffiti and street art.
But that's an art form.
But they thought we were criminals.
And now there's murals all over.
That's ArtsFest 2014 is ultimately what broke down those barriers with the city of Allentown. Now they're all about the murals. Pre-2014 ArtsFest, we couldn't get them to touch a mural. They were like, nope, absolutely not. They thought everyone that was involved with it was in a gang. Which is insane.
That is.
It's like if you actually knew.
It's very antiquated thinking.
It is. And, in that way, I don't want to say we've become the trendsetters, but we've definitely set that trend in our city. And it's like we're just getting started. Murals are an obvious thing. And now that they realize it's an obvious thing, like, oh, yeah, let's just do as many as we can. Once again, ignoring other mediums of art. So it's been this uphill battle to convince them to support the things that need support. And we're not going to turn them around on it. Not right now, at least. It's a lost cause. It's trying to beat a dead horse. So the best way we can bring ArtsFest back is getting a few community sponsors. And more than anything, we just got to crowdfund it and just get small donations from our community. Because at the end of the day, yes, we could charge an admission to get into ArtsFest to help pay for it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because the kids that live around my building, even if ArtsFest were $2 or $3, their parents aren't going to have the money to give it to them.
Yeah.
So if those kids can't come out, then
one of the
nobody should
biggest
be.
things with art is that it should be accessible.
I'm a huge believer in that.
Yeah. So I think I respect and honor that you feel so strongly about that. So it's our job, the adults, the people with the powers that be, to actually put the word out, to put donations, to sponsor, and to create these wonderful events that are for technically the youth. Like, yes, they're for local artists, but it's also for the youth. You know how many art students would go to that?
Oh, I mean, and it's right there at Muhlenberg.
Exactly.
So those kids love it when they can come down. I mean, it's the perfect event for college kids. Especially if you're of drinking age. We sell beer there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Alternative Gallery, being a nonprofit, it can get a liquor license, a limited liquor license for 6 calendar days out of the year. So we get a liquor license from the Liquor Control Board of Pennsylvania, and we sell beer at ArtsFest.
Yeah.
And we're not getting like just crappy bottom shelf beer. We're focusing on local breweries and putting a spotlight on them and selling their beer. The one year we were actually selling Brewworks beer cheaper than they were. We're like, we're not going to do that again. That's way too cheap. we want to make things so accessible to a point that we kind of screw ourselves over.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I'm going to stop doing that, but I want to try to do better.
Yeah.
Because we're all about the long term of this.
Wiser then, in a wiser form. That's right.
That's where you apply.
But
the
it
experience.
takes trial and error. That's what I was going to say.
Correct.
It takes trial and error with a lot of these
You've
things.
vended an ArtsFest before, haven't you?
I did, yes.
What was that
shared
like?
A tent. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And that's why I said that it's technically for the youth. You know how many people, we had stickers that we were selling. You know how many of the young ones, they loved our canvas work. They loved, because I shared a tent. And I loved their feedback. I loved their enthusiasm. But the only thing they could actually afford were the stickers. And a lot of them were even skaters. So then they would just put them on their boards. So the fact that I would see like just their response, how much they enjoyed it. They would be there. ArtsFest was 3 days.
Yep, 3
correct?
days. Friday, Saturday,
I would
Sunday.
see them sometimes twice out of those 3 days that they were there. And I'm just like, oh, they love the environment. They love being around other artists. They love being around other art. This is what it's for. This is its purpose.
And you need an organization like us to put together an event like that. If the city of Allentown were to put together ArtsFest,
It would not be the same.
it would be so corny.
It would not be the same.
Yeah,
It would not be the same.
It wouldn't be the same. You know, and it's a shame that, okay, yeah, it saved us some trouble from having to throw an ArtsFest this year. But even when we don't have an ArtsFest, we still put in a ton of time trying to have an ArtsFest. And then it doesn't happen. And then we have to slowly break the news. And I'm not one of those people that's going to go and do a public announcement, oh, no ArtsFest this year. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I don't like doing that. Okay, maybe that's bad that we don't do that, but at the same time, when we have an announcement, you'll have it. And when we have an announcement, it's going to be that it's coming back. And for those listening right now, it's not coming back. Guaranteed, at least. We're trying. Yet again, this is going to be the 3rd year in a row we're trying.
Yeah.
It's probably the thing I get asked about the most.
I bet.
Is ArtsFest.
It's such a good, positive event.
Even bands. We have bands that will submit that have never played Alternative Gallery, have never played Allentown, never even visited Allentown. Somehow they know about ArtsFest. And they try to book themselves. Hey, are you guys doing it this year? These bands will plan a tour around coming to ArtsFest. And again, we can't even pay the bands.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say that we can't pay the bands, but it's the truth. We barely make the festival work. The goal is to get to a point where we can pay every performer, every interactive artist, every demo, everything of that nature. But right now, we're still trying to get it on its feet. And it seems like, I don't know if the city maybe the city doesn't want ArtsFest. I don't know. Maybe we should take ArtsFest somewhere else. What do you think about that?
Why not?
Why not, right? Just because Allentown doesn't want to support it.
Allentown might not want to support it, but that doesn't mean that festival will not be responded. If it's not responded that great already, with the limited amount of resources you've already had, can you imagine in a space that truly supports it and is giving you the amount of resources needed? I feel like it could expand to something way more, and it could be beautiful.
Did you sell anything at ArtsFest?
Like I said, stickers, I think like a canvas or two. I shared a tent, so I got to know another artist, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, because I know a lot of vendors do like really well there. We've had some vendors that have vended for 20, 30 years, professional vendors that have said the best they've ever done was at that festival, which, again, how do we get so many buyers at ArtsFest, but where are they the rest of the year when the festival isn't happening?
I had a friend who does jewelry, and I believe she sold a lot. I think she said at ArtsFest, and she said there was people who came from like the middle of nowhere.
You get a lot of those,
and then came just I guess for the festival.
Wow.
And they ended up, she said, like buying a bunch of stuff from her.
Wow.
So yeah, I feel like that your clientele could be coming from who knows where.
Well, it's such a mixed bag.
Exactly.
The different types of music, the different types of art vendors, the skating, the kids area. We have the technology area. The reason I asked you if you sold anything is, yes, we want ArtsFest to be a great community event. Yes, we want it to be for the youth, but my main focus is that the art vendors are killing it because they might not make much money in the city all year long, but come
ArtsFest,
yeah, I want that to be like one of their like 2 or 3 main events all year long that they know they can rely on and they can survive on, because then it gives them more reason to live in or near Allentown.
Yeah.
When you have less of those reasons, guess what? You go somewhere else. And that's the thing that I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing so many great artists leave because the area just doesn't cut it for them. And I know for those who listen to all these episodes, I'm probably a broken record, but it has to be said again and again until it changes.
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
I think this area has all the potential in the world to be great.
It
But
most definitely does.
a friend of mine just pointed something out to me recently. The Jandals, who are building the waterfront property, they just had a groundbreaking ceremony recently. And one of them said their approach was different than a lot of the other development happening in the city of Allentown, in the way of they were providing for what was already here, not what they wanted the city to be. And I think that's the key difference. And that's why things aren't working downtown. You have a company like City Center that refuses to acknowledge and support what's already here.
Yeah.
You have ArtsFest, this beautiful thing that happens at Cedar Beach Park, which is a place that traditionally had these kind of events, that stopped having these events, that people like me want to keep that tradition going. I think it's a beautiful space. I think it's a perfect layout for that type of festival, especially with the graffiti panels. You're high up in the path. You can watch down. You can have your baby in the stroller, and you're not catching any of those spray paint fumes. It works out great. They don't want to nurture what's there. They have a different vision for the city, and they're willing to break what's there or erase what's there in order to try and get it. And that's what's happening in the city right now. They don't really care what's here. They have their idea of what they want, and everything else is kind of like, no, we don't want that.
It's silly to me because I feel like it would be so much more successful for both parties, for everyone, if they would
Absolutely.
just be like, hey, this has been working. How could we be a part of this? How could we collaborate? How could we co-create to make this even better and just for it to grow and be sustainable for years and years to come?
That's right. Right now, City Center is a big fish in a pond. So where City Center swims, the rest will follow. So our thought is, well, okay, if we get City Center on board, other companies will follow in Allentown. Well, the first couple of years, they wanted us to move it from Cedar Beach to Hamilton Street and make it a street fair, which is like, that's a completely different festival. We're not doing that. And then the last year, they wanted us to have an opening night party just for their strata residents. I'm like, do you have any idea what the fuck I'm doing the night before ArtsFest? We're moving light towers. We're setting up tents. We're running
It
power
encounters
lines.
a lot of labor.
Yes.
Yes.
You want me to leave actually setting up ArtsFest
Yes.
to throw a private party for your rental tenants. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
So we're
Silly.
like, we tried for multiple years to work with them, and we're just, it's not going to work. So we gave up. And it sucks because had they been on board, ArtsFest would have happened this year. A month back, we would have had an ArtsFest.
Yeah.
How great would that have been?
Their residents would have been visiting, having a good time,
know.
and heading right
I
back to
know.
their apartments.
I know. And that's why I think it's really up to the artists to shape what we want here.
Yeah.
So what do you hope the future of the city has in store for the arts?
Well, I think, one, I'm a big person, again, with youth and events and community. So I think accessibility is a big thing. I would literally want more artistic spaces that are more inviting for our community of all sorts of demographics. I would like more programming that's also accessible. I know you guys have a free art classes for children, which I absolutely support and I'm very happy with. My kids even participated in some of those classes.
Yep, they've been here.
And as well as now the museum's free, which is also has been a big objective. So now finally for a year now.
Yeah, that was a great move.
They finally got a grant to make it accessible for everyone, which again, I think how you said the kids surrounding our spaces are, like, if we put it to it, like as simple as possible, cannot afford a lot of things. They don't have the proper resources. So I think just allowing that accessibility for everyone is the first key. So I think we're on the right realm. And the second thing, just having more events that are for artists. Again, how are we going to inspire the youth if we don't allow the current artists to be successful? How are we going to allow them to feel like this is something that they could also succeed in if the current artists are not succeeding in? We need to support them. We need to create opportunities and spaces for them, create jobs for artists. I think that's another thing. I mean, the mural situation, I see that kind of changing, but get your local artists to create and have meetups about how they could create artistic jobs in your community.
Yeah, and I know muralists don't want to hear this, but the city has gone overboard with murals the last few years, and as someone that's not a muralist, it's like, come on, let's fund other things. Okay, muralists, they get pissed when I say that, but it's the truth. Look how many murals have been funded. Let's compare that to how many documentaries and films have been funded the last 5 years. One is basically like 90% of the funding outside of any kind of rehab of existing public art that the city takes care of. there is nothing going towards other mediums of art almost. It's crazy. How many muralists actually live in Allentown? 10, 15? That's
not many. Not many.
That's not many.
Yeah, there's not many. And like you said, there's other artistic fields in this area.
Writing,
it's just,
dancing.
Yes, like we just had our Hispanic Heritage event at the museum. And one thing that my coworker, Devin, helped plan before she left the museum, she had dancers of Spanish ethnicities come on a weekend to have free dance lessons. Now, how beautiful is that? One, they got paid as they deserve for their time to teach there at the museum. And two, they were able to provide dance classes to people who can't afford dance classes. And it's cultural, ethnic. It serves our community. That's the type of programming we should have more often. And it's great that we had it for Hispanic Heritage, but I would love that to be a more regular thing. And that's what I mean by creating more opportunities for artists. So that's just one example for the dancers. How else could we incorporate that for other realms? Like you said, the documentary that you did, I would love for more people to see what it's like to live here. I drove past my son's middle school the other evening, and I didn't even know this until literally I asked one of the staffs about what was going on. And they were giving out free food at the school, and there was the line literally like 3 to 4 blocks down.
Wow.
And I was confused initially. I was just like, what is this line of people? Normally I'm like, why are they here? It's after hours, it's the evening, what is going on? And then later on I asked, like I said, the staff, and they were like, oh, every once a month you could take fruit, donation bread, certain things that we give to the community because we know a lot of these parents can't afford food right now. We love that. They don't allow the kids to go hungry. Okay, so how could we co-create with situations like that, events like that with artists? It would be nice if we had, I don't know, instead of a mural, why don't we have like a community art thing that we could do, gift it to the school. There's things that we could do together, once again, key element, together to raise our community. And I think that's something we should push more.
Absolutely. And, since you're on that topic, I'm pretty salty about the city's support and response to my documentary I did, The Saints of ASD, which stands for Allentown School District, they spent 7 months during the pandemic filming in 14 different schools how the cafeteria staff was providing meals for students while they were learning remotely. Mm-hmm. Over 14,000 students getting these meals.
Yeah. Very small staff from what I know.
Very small staff. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea the poverty and food insecurity issue was this bad in Allentown. I mean, one in 3 children in Allentown suffer from food insecurity.
Yeah.
Meaning 1 in 3 kids in Allentown don't know where the next meal is coming from or are even guaranteed a next meal. The national average is 1 of 7.
Yeah.
That is getting worse.
I was going to say, it's only getting worse because of inflation. My kids go to the Allentown School District.
Well, it's also getting worse because Allentown's population is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we're getting a lot of people getting priced out of bigger cities that can't afford to live there anymore. Mm-hmm. So Allentown's population is rising and our median income is dropping. Mm-hmm. So we have, it's like 60-some%, almost 70% of the city is living at or below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And we're not addressing these issues. And this was meant to be a short documentary when I initially started filming it. And then once I saw the scope of it, this has to be an hour-long film. I can't tell it in just 10 minutes. And the lack of support from the city to get out the word on childhood food insecurity was so insulting to me. I'm like, what other issue is there going to be that's more important than our children not being fed?
It's insensitive because especially after... it's the district. So it should be one of the highest, I feel like.
Well, the district, I think, did a great job with it.
Yeah. It should be one of the highest things that we should support because it's literally our entire community. And like you said, majority, I got a phone call from my school district saying, I believe during the pandemic, that same thing, that a lot of people can't afford food. We're handing out food for the schools. If this affects your family, you're more than welcome. I thought this was great. I remember asking my kids, hey, have you ever had a situation? And they said, yeah, there's some kids that come and they don't have food. So I just share with them. And then the one year they told us, don't worry, your kid will be provided a lunch. We've got funding that the entire school district now will have free lunch because there's so many people within that poverty line that can't afford.
Allentown is a Title I school district, meaning that over 50% of Allentown's population is below the poverty line. Mm-hmm. Because of that, they get federal funding to give free breakfast and lunch to all students, no questions asked.
Yeah, absolutely. And to think before that there was children that couldn't eat, had nothing. is crazy. That's why
It's heartbreaking.
yeah, it breaks my heart
If
because
we can't even feed our kids, what are we actually doing?
exactly. No nourishment for them, no elemental wellness. And then we expect them to learn and grow and become with not even their basic needs are being met.
Correct. And this is where I thought, again, where artists, they're filling their role in fixing society. My job was to bring awareness to this because I'm born and raised in Allentown. I am involved in all kinds of things. And even I had no idea this problem was as bad as it was. So if I don't know, I'm guessing a lot of people don't know about
Majority
this.
don't people. My kids were going to the schools. I'm telling you, my kids have been in the Allentown School District forever. My oldest is 15 years old. I did not know this until all of these phone calls and these letters were being mailed to me. And I have no idea. I'm providing my child with his lunch. But little did I know his classmates were going hungry, literally going hungry.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've asked him, I was like, have you ever had these situations? And he's just like, oh yeah, mom, sometimes I've shared my snack. And I'm just like, wow, I did not realize that many people were in poverty here. That's heartbreaking. And the fact that you took the time to create art that gave you light and realism into that world should be respected.
It's not that I want the attention. What I want is the focus where it needs to be on these families. I wanted these people to get the support they needed. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I let them down. I felt like, I told the cafeteria staff, I would see them day in and day out. And this is when the schools were shut down and all the kids were learning remotely. And they didn't know what was going to happen from day to day. This was early in the pandemic and they weren't getting hazard pay. They weren't getting anything extra. Mm-hmm. And I had this belief in my heart and my soul that if I could, I would go and I would fight Congress to pay you all for what you did. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're not going to do that.
No.
And it's like, as much as I wanted that to happen.
Yeah.
No. And that's the kind of things that we need to fix. And we might not be able to fix that situation, but if we ever find ourselves in a similar situation, I hope we do it differently. Mm-hmm. Because those people were not acknowledged as heroes.
Yeah, and they were most definitely were.
They were, in my opinion, beyond heroes, which is why I call them the saints.
Yeah,
they were the saints.
Were. Mm-hmm.
And part of the thing that I was hoping people would get out of that film, aside from the surface issues, was that, wow, these cafeteria staff are kind of holding things together. Someone I never would have thought about. Who else in society might be doing that, but I'm not thinking about? Mm-hmm. I was trying to make people a little bit more introspective as far as looking at the world they live in and all the moving pieces. Because too much in this world, at least in American society, it's so much, oh, what is your job? And if it's not a high enough title, you're not worth my time. Mm-hmm. I don't like that at all. Because you're not treating people like people.
It's not right. It's not right.
You are not your job.
Yeah.
You are you and who you are. Mm-hmm. So what do you think that non-artists, how can art help them?
Well, art creates visibility. So whether you believe, you didn't get the best response as far as your art, I believe it brings visibility. We're talking about it right now as well.
That's true. Good point.
That's starting something. And I think that's always like the initiation of like a match to a flame. You have to start somewhere. So whether we're talking about it, creating that visualization of seeing it. So as artists, I believe that's part of our job. That's why I say storytelling is very freaking important when you're creating. Like, yes, you might have to just feel some things out, and that's great. You have your art that's for that. But then another part as an artist is, what are you trying to tell the world? When you die, what do you want to leave behind and what do you want to see? That's part of our job. So like I said, me teaching, I believe that's my purpose because I want to inspire other artists. I want kids to feel like someone believes in them, whether their parents are telling them that they're not going to make it and they're not going to succeed. I'm going to be like, hey, everyone told me those same things too. And here I am making a living being an artist.
I love the positivity. That's so great. We need more of that in the world.
Absolutely.
So you're about to start a new art class at the museum, right? What's the name of that? What can you tell me about that?
So it's Arte y Español. So I came into the museum right after the pandemic and they tried starting off this program, I believe in 2018, but it was kind of just trying to figure itself out. It's a partnership with PBS and the Spanish Immersion Center here in Allentown, which I love that it's a collaboration type of programming because I am a full believer in that if you have not gotten that already.
Collaboration is key.
Exactly. So after the pandemic, I got into the museum and they kind of were telling me about it. And I was like, all right, I want that programming. That is totally me. One, because I'm bilingual. I am Hispanic and I've been raised here. So I am very passionate about providing programs that I believe should service everyone, especially my community. My Latinos are very prominent here, so they should definitely be seen and validated and also part of our artistic community in the museum. It starts on Saturday. It is free.
Saturday, November 4th is the first
Saturday,
one.
November 4th. It is from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. It's an hour long. The Spanish Immersion Center will come, sit in the gallery and read a book in Spanish. And then we will follow with a small, brief discussion with one of the artworks in the gallery that is cohesive with it. And then we will follow up upstairs in the Rodale classroom and create a project that will go with it. So this week we're working on animals. We're reading about animales and where they come from. And then we're going to do sketches about some animals that we like.
Awesome. Do people have to pre-register or can they just drop in?
No, that is one thing that I feel like we've emphasized recently. It is open to everyone. So drop-ins are welcome. They are family oriented. So whether your child is in preschool, 4 years old, or you have a teen or tween, they are welcome. If you're an adult and literally just want to do something creative for the weekend and have no idea what to do with yourself, you're also welcome. Again, it's supposed to be very family friendly, all age friendly. It's bilingual. So if you only speak Spanish, you could also partake in it because I speak both languages and part of the class will be in Spanish.
And it's free, right?
It is free.
So Arte y Español
Yes.
this Saturday, November 4th at the Allentown Art Museum. What time?
2 p.m. to 3 p.m.
2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Oh, that works out nice. For any kids that come here to our class, it gets over 1:30. We can send them your way.
Yes, that's why I took a picture before I came in of your classroom poster because I'm just like, I could post it. So if people are looking for things and activities to do on the weekend, they could definitely come here
Do both.
first and then do that later. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. What have your experiences been like here in the building? Because I know you've done a lot of stuff. It's not just you. You bring your whole family out.
Oh my God, my kids love it here. They're obsessed. And you've seen I have a troupe. I have a whole daycare. So my teen loves it because you have cool retro vintage stuff. So he's like, Brandon has all these cool games, all these cool things that I could do. So he just enjoys being in this space. And I think it's playful for him and just very comforting in a sense. And then Ivy, my little Ivy, she plays with all the kids in the neighborhood.
Yep.
So she just enjoys running around, talking to them, playing. I know she went upstairs and during the last open house and she was creating with the spackle. And I also got Emily to come in and work on it with her. And then Nova she considers herself an artist already. So she just welcomes everyone into the studio space and says hello throughout the open house. So it's a very inviting gallery. That's why I feel like this is like I was saying earlier, it's not those fine art, uptight type of galleries. And I hate to say that because I do enjoy those galleries as well.
They have their place.
But they have a certain different energy to them. And I believe that's why I said as an artist, you should dabble in both. And
Yes.
just immerse yourself in different environments. And that way you could grow and be inspired. Because I feel like as much as I enjoy those spaces of fine art, I'm inspired in a different way in those spaces versus here. Here I play around with other artists. Here I converse with other artists. Here I'm able to just be me.
One of them feels like going to church and the other is like a night out with friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'll leave it to listeners to decide which is which.
Exactly.
But it's like, those stuffy, uptight galleries, I don't think they're harmful, so I'm not trying to eradicate them from the world. They're not for me.
Yeah.
I can't afford any art that's in there. They're going to look at art artists. Oh, you only charge $500, $1,000 for a painting. We don't want anything that's not $15,000 or less. Okay, well, we're not the group for you. That's fine. Some artists want those spaces specifically. And I think that's one thing, too. People, when they don't like something, they kind of unknowingly take on this mission of trying to eradicate it from the world. It's like, is it harmful to the world? No, then hands off. Just let it be. Move on
It's
and
just not
focus
for
on-
you.
Correct.
It's just not for you.
Correct. Well, not everyone, if everyone had the same opinion as you, we'd have a pretty boring world.
Oh my
here.
God, super boring. Super boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I don't want to knock it because even when I'm traveling, I feel like those are also some of my favorite places to go because I get to see different type of art. But I did have that, I guess, similar situation as me, an artist, trying to pitch myself to those galleries. And I like my art to be affordable. That's my perspective. Some of those galleries kind of look at you like, why? Like, what are you doing? Like,
Well, that's the collector world. Those galleries exist around the collector's world, and collectors want things to be rare, one of a kind.
yes.
So they don't understand why a painter would want to make prints of their painting, because then you devalue the original to a degree.
Yeah.
You and I and a lot of artists we work with, we don't see that piece as being that rare, only one of a kind. We want our work to be accessible.
Yeah.
It's, yes, like you said, it's about the journey of doing this and the process. But for some people, it's about sharing the finished piece.
Yeah.
And if you can't get it out in the way you want, you kind of feel like your work didn't get into the hands that it should have. And those galleries, again, they're catering to collectors who a lot of times they're treating art like a commodity. It's a stock. They want to buy cheap and sell high.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not our world.
That's not.
And I don't think it's ever going to be our
No.
world. I just have no interest.
No. And I think our perspective is just very different. I would go about it that way. I feel like that's something I had to learn. And that's why I said that space just isn't for me, because I forget who, I might misquote them, but somebody wrote something about the lines that art first is for you and then it's for others. It's your gift to the world. So to me, if I would just put myself like, oh, I'm just pricing this super high so no one could get their hands off, that defeats the purpose of me giving that gift to somebody else. I might have went through something and this is a story that they resonate with. And now I'm basically saying, no, you can't have it. You can't touch this. You can't resonate with this. That would not fulfill my purpose, I feel, as being an artist.
Well, so it's like artists or galleries that set that high price, they're saying there is a qualifier to own this work and it's having money. I think we're just saying there are different qualifiers.
Yes.
We, as genuine artists, I think often want our art, especially an original piece, to be in the hands of someone that really loves it.
Values it, yes.
I'm sure you've made a sale before and you were like, I'm so glad that person got that piece. That piece was meant for them.
Yep.
You've had that experience, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Isn't that such a fulfilling experience?
It's an amazing experience. I have a friend who bought one of my pieces and it's in their house and they have their kids taking pictures and stuff like that. And I love seeing it in their home. I'm like, that was meant, like you said, it has that feeling like that was meant for you. That was meant to be in your space. You value that in a totally, like it's not even a monetary value.
No, it's a piece of their environment.
Exactly.
And their family now.
And they appreciate it in a different way. And that to me is way more fulfilling.
Those kids will see pictures 50 years from now and be like, oh, I remember that painting.
Yes. And then they'll have a story. I'm sure they'll be like, oh, wasn't that your friend, Stephy? You know? That is what makes me happy. That to me, seeing my art in those spaces is what's fulfilling. Yes, a gallery is cool. Yeah, you could say, I've had pieces in a gallery. Great. But it is different seeing it to someone who values it, like you said.
It sounds like you like the vending experience more than showing in gallery spaces then.
Yes, for sure. I was showing in Stroudsburg and I love Courtney and Sylvia, who gave me their gallery space, and I showed there. I believe their mayor or whatever came. They had the news there. Cool. Great. Wonderful. Not knocking it. But I am such a more casual, organic, raw person that I enjoy random strangers coming to talk to me. I was painting at the market. I think you were there with me that evening, and I had my easel out, and even Nicole from City Center came over. She's like, oh my God, this is so cool.
I do love Nicole.
And then
she's great.
Yeah, she is really sweet.
City Center pisses me off, but she's amazing.
And I had these kiddos come and they were like, oh, you painted this? And I'm like, yeah. And then they were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm working on the hair. And I even gave them a brush. I'm like, here, you could come and play with me. And I enjoy that. And
you could have changed those kids' lives for all you know.
Yeah. They went to the event and they might be telling their parents, I got to paint today and it was super fun. I live for those experiences.
Well, and you know what? And that's why I like doing what we did with the Third Thursday Art Market, is because I know normal types of people. When I say normal, I mean people that don't typically go to art galleries, non-artists essentially.
Yes.
They're not going to go to an art gallery. So they're not going to see your art if that's where it's at. I like putting the art where the people already are.
Yeah.
And it's a different experience entirely when you get to also talk to the artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those things
Absolutely.
are special. I encourage that. And anyone that's like trying to do art events or get in your city more active towards the arts, have these art events where people already are. Inside, if it's bad weather or winter, outside if you can, because people want to go out and do things and they might not know what they want to do either.
Yeah.
But then they come across these things. Like I've so many times I've heard people say, oh my God, I didn't think I liked art. Now I like art.
Like you said, they just might not be exposed to it. Like you said, they're not going to go into a gallery. Half the time, those galleries have weird hours, one.
Or they feel they're going to be judged because they're not wearing, an Armani suit or whatever.
They're like, I have to be a collector of some sort in order to enter this space.
There's going to be a pop quiz on art history in order for me to enter.
I don't even know how to talk about art.
Yeah.
You know how many friends I've invited to like shows or different things that I've had, and they're like, well, how do I have to dress? I don't know if I know enough about art, Stephanie. I'm like, you just have to be there.
You come as you are. You come hang out. That's it.
You just have to be there. So I feel like those events that you have definitely are more organic, have less pressure, and allow you to be exposed to things you probably normally wouldn't be exposed to. So.
Well, and the thing is too, like, there is a benefit to vending because you're next to other artists, but at the same time, you still have to work. And when you remove the element of trying to focus on making money and then worrying about, all right, well, parking sucks and I got to bring my vehicle around and pack it all up, you start removing those things. And again, that's where the artist takeovers are so important, these meetups, because the whole structure of having to vend and bring your art or do something is removed. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about, oh, when the meetup is over, I have to go pack my car and this or that. You literally go to the next place with a group of friends or you go home.
Yeah.
It's really simple and it's self-contained. And when you can do that, you open up a whole new world that I think we were all missing out on.
Yeah.
At least I feel like I was missing out on it. And I didn't know how great this was until we actually had it.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think I talked to one of the ladies who's a designer. She creates garments. And I do photography as well. That's another artistry of mine. Again, I'm an artist of many mediums. So when I got together with her and started just chatting it out, she told me she had never had anyone take like real photos of her garments. And
Wow.
I'm just like, dude, let's get you some people to wear your garments and let's do a shoot. Like, let's collaborate. Let's co-create. Let's do something like that. And she's just like, really? If I wouldn't have been to that event, if I wouldn't have conversed with her, she's young too. How would I have not created this moment? We would have never done that. We would have never, hey, let's help each other. Let's let your art be seen,
It's amazing what happens when you literally just put creative people in a room together.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's going to come out of it. And if you don't do that, you will never know.
That's right.
That's why it's super important. So are there any artists that you want to shine a light on?
Any artists? Alex, the designer that I was just talking about. Yeah, she is awesome.
She's doing a fashion show here on November 11th.
She told me, and I'm so excited.
Yep.
I'm so excited. And I'm glad that you're supporting her because, again, I think she's absolutely amazing.
She has a great sensibility. I think she's very genuine. Her work is incredible.
Absolutely.
We used to have a lot of fashion shows pre-pandemic, and we haven't really had much lately, so it's a great fit here. We like the diversity, so it's going to be an amazing event.
Yeah, she's amazing. Liz is amazing. Oh, my God.
Liz Ramos, yeah.
And she's so young. Like, again, these artists are so young. And I feel like
it gives you hope for the future.
Yes, it does. I feel like, especially because, not that I wasted time, because I never want to say that I waste time, because all time is precious and it holds value and purpose.
But it took you a while to find your way.
But it took me a while to figure out that I was an artist and be confident in that and actually pursue it.
Girl, I feel the same way about myself. So it's okay.
Yes.
Yet here we are.
Yes, here we are.
Here we are.
So
right?
when I see these young artists, I'm just like, oh my God, don't give up on yourself. Just do it. Get it. You got this. I'm rooting for you if no one else is. So I am just, the young artists are just absolutely amazing, beautiful. My honey's amazing. He just opened his business. I think I told you that. So he's taken his graffiti style and now created it into tattooing.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You were telling me his tattoo shop he just opened up. Congratulations
in
on that.
Bethlehem. Yes, Joelle.
What's the name of the tattoo shop?
House of Deadly Hands.
House of Deadly Hands. So check that out.
And he hired a whole bunch of girls in his shop too, which I love. I was like, you're secretly a feminist and I love this. And he chuckled. He's like, oh, Stephanie. Even going there, I seen two other tattoo shops of other, again, young artists. So I think whatever we're doing, whether we get grief for it, it is inspiring some and it is getting other younger folks to actually pursue things.
That is amazing.
So
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Not so much to feel good about what I'm doing, but just to know that what we are doing is helping others.
Yes.
Because that, at the end of the day, is what's important to me.
Absolutely. Like you said, we resonate with figuring out later on. So I feel like being the empathetic people that we are, artists that we are, we want others to pursue it early on and just not be afraid to go for it, you know?
Yeah, and I want to inspire people to build things that last too. And when I say last, I don't mean for your lifetime. When I say last, I mean for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's kind of not always built into agendas or plans. And that's why things aren't going so great.
Yeah.
Because we're not thinking enough about the long term.
Yeah.
And that's really where it needs to be. But it sounded like we have a hell of a future ahead of us.
I think we do. And and my friend Anthony Smith, I don't know if you do know Anthony
I know
Smith?
Anthony, yeah.
Anthony's amazing. He just told me, this inspires even me. So I think it's a domino effect. We inspire others, again, the long run. And Anthony's a little older than me, but he just got a residency, I think, in like Sweden. And he came back and he was like, I know I'm old, Steph. Sorry, Anthony, if I'm putting your business out there. And he was just like, and I'm finally doing all these things. But I'm just like, dude, you're doing it though. That's inspiring to me. Right now, my focus is a lot on my children and the work that I'm doing here locally in my home. But I do hope that eventually I can do this in other parts of the world. And just hearing him doing that, I'm just like, oh my God, I could totally do that. Like, that's
Super
inspiring,
inspiring.
Anthony. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Heck yeah. So
I'm pretty sure that those families and those kids that you're working with at these classes, the museum, you're putting them on a similar path to do those types of things.
yeah, it fulfills my heart. Normally my programming is kind of like a school year. So it's from fall till the beginning of summer. And I have families from the past 2 to 3 years who come religiously on a monthly basis because
Wow.
this is first weekend of the month. So it only happens once a month. And they come again religiously and they were like, we were looking forward to seeing you. If God forbid I miss work, they were like, you weren't here. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I hope whoever was here to replace me for that weekend, you were happy. They're like, yes, but we're happy when you're here. And again, looking at my job is not just I'm an art educator, I'm an art teacher, but also I'm someone who needs to encourage and inspire these children because everyone's an artist. And I don't want anyone to think that it has to be intimidating or it has to be a certain way. Because I feel like when I was in college and in high school, I was graded on my art. And I think that's what kind of intimidated me. I'm like, I'm not as good. I can't do this.
Well, that's the thing you hate, that compartmentalizing,
Exactly.
putting things in the box.
Exactly. So I think doing that with my job and just encouraging even the adults, I make the parents create. I'm like, if your kids are here creating, you should create too.
Absolutely.
And then they get into it. And that just makes me like so happy inside. So I'm just like, now you all created together and you could go home and hang this wherever you want to hang it. Or if you want to put it in a folder so you could all look at it later. I allowed you to create a memory and an experience and you co-created together with your hands and also mentally. Like it was a mental thing as well. So
once again, Arte Español this Saturday, November 4th at the Allentown Art Museum, 2 p.m. It's free. Just drop in, AllentownArtMuseum.org. You get all the information about it. And there is another great event we want to talk about this weekend. Over at the Bradbury Sullivan Center, it's an art portfolio workshop. It is Saturday, November 4th from 1:15 to 2:15 p.m. And the description is this: need to digitize your portfolio? Want to get the attention of a potential employer or college? This workshop offered during our first Saturday programming will help you put together a cohesive portfolio in order to land that sweet art opportunity. With the help of the center's graphic designer, they will walk you through scanning and photographing artwork, customize portfolio pages, and teach the basics of branding. All you need to bring is your artwork or existing portfolio for review and editing. This workshop is for all ages. And for that, you can go to bradburysullivancenter.org/Saturdays to get that information. And another free event that I think is very useful for artists.
oh my gosh, those are great events.
Right?
Heck yeah. As an artist, I'm like, how many times I'm just so curious of, and I do photography as well. Sometimes you cannot get a good picture of your prints and it does not show the right way. So
know.
that class right there.
And I didn't even know about it. They fortunately reached out to me and asked if we could talk about it. I was like, absolutely. This
Heck
is,
yeah.
for our base of artists, this is something they should be involved in. And just to let you know what's happening here at the Alternative Gallery, we do have a show here this Saturday evening. It is a music event. Bear Sloth, which once again is the amazing intro and outro music, which was recorded here at the Alternative Gallery. The Big Shabuzi is playing with them, as well as Living Things in the Iridescence. Doors are at 7 p.m. That's a $10 show. The money goes to support the bands, and it is an all-ages event. Come rock out with some funky jams from Bear Sloth. And then next Wednesday, November 8th, we have the Dusty Cans screening at the Emmaus Theater. That is at 7 p.m. And it's a $25 donation, which goes to support our film archive and all of our archiving efforts here at the gallery. And these are actually 16 millimeter film prints that we saved over the summer. And we're curating some really bonkers blocks of educationals, safety films, cartoons, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come out for that if you can. Again, it's Wednesday, November 8th at the Emmaus Theater. It's $25. I know it sounds pricey, but it's a donation to help support our amazing archiving efforts. Stephanie, it was great chatting with you.
Always great chatting with you.
We're going to have to get you back. We're going to bring more artists on, and we're going to have group conversations. This is the start of it, my friend.
And I feel we need this not just for our community. In general, we need to talk about art more often.
Absolutely.
Art is the core of everything.
And this is a way for us to not just have those conversations with people directly in our community. Hopefully, people around the world can eventually discover these conversations and learn from them and
Absolutely.
Get inspired by them. If we can inspire people in far-flung places here in the world by what we do here in little old Allentown, hey, that's a hell of a job done here, isn't it?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
High five. Thank you so much, Steph. Again, check out Steph this Saturday at the Art Museum, and you can check her out on Instagram, Stephy, Stephy.xox.
That's correct, yes.
Instagram, you can check out all of her great stuff she does on there, and we'll see you next time, Stephanie.
All right, thank you, Brandon.
See you, everyone.